Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Molly Hurford. I'm the author of a lot of books on cycling, including the Shred Girls series. I'm a runner and a cyclist here in Collingwood, Ontario. And my husband Peter and I run the Consummate Athlete, which is where I write and talk about endurance sports, and he coaches endurance sports. So when I put this event together in November, the How to Be Outside speaker series, I didn't expect shoulder season to be quite this bad. I thought April, kind of a dark, grim month. It'll be great to have a chance to get together and really meet new people and everything. And obviously, things did not work out the way that I necessarily planned. But, this is a little bit different, but we're still trying to make do with what we can. And for those of you who are counting days till the live event, luckily we have rescheduled for October 9th at the Gaiety Theater in Collingwood. It's going to be an amazing evening still. And tonight isn't just a pared down version of that initial thought on how to be outside. The three speakers who are with me tonight, Justin Jones, Tara Blaine Hunt, and Peter Glassford, all wanted to kind of change their topics from the original things that they had thought about to talk about what we're contending with today. So all four of us have taken kind of a different approach to this concept that now is the time for behavior change on both macro and micro levels. So I'm really excited for you to hear what they have to say. So I'll just say a huge thank you to these speakers and to all of you who've come online tonight. I know these are really scary times we live in, and it's easier than ever to isolate ourselves. So I appreciate that you're all here. We'll also have a PDF with some of the key takeaways from the evening. And to get that, I'll send it out later, so make sure you're on the mailing list. I put it in the chat here, or it's bit.ly/howtobeoutside. So get signed up and get that and get a video recording from tonight. So I'm going to kick this off a little bit about why we're here, or more precisely, how a reluctant athlete and huge bookworm ended up hosting a series about how to get outside. So let me just share my screen here. Okay, and let's get into it. Okay, so right now, more than ever, it's super important to continue moving and exercising to the best of our abilities. I've written a few articles in the past month talking about how biologically exercise helps with everything from stress reduction to immune system boosting to making it a little bit easier to sleep at night. And as someone who did not take movement very seriously until much later in life, I understand the urge to go into hiding and stay under the covers instead of getting outside in nature. I have to admit, not that long ago, I probably would have enjoyed the idea of being able to stay in my house all day and just read a lot of books. When I was a kid, I was not an athlete. I was the kid who pretended to feel faint when we had to run the mile in gym class. I once cried when my mom signed me up for t-ball and tried to drop me off at practice. Ditto soccer and softball and volleyball, like into my preteens. I was really nerdy. I was anti-athletic and proud of it. I was punk rock. You couldn't make me play a sport if you paid me. Luckily, eventually I found cycling and running in my 20s, and while it was not love at first 5K, the solo endurance endeavors kind of suited me, and it very quickly became a huge part of my life. I ended up in the cycling industry as a writer, and the outdoor industry at large as someone who's just really passionate about trail running. And that's how I ended up here tonight, though I'm still kind of a huge bookworm. So we know that spending time in nature is great for us. We don't need to hear that our productivity and our creativity are improved by simply taking a walk or sitting in a forest. We know that science has proven over and over again that exercise is the best antidepressant available, and just a few workouts a week will dampen feelings of loneliness and anxiety. We know this. But we're the small percentage of people who do understand this. And it's kind of easy to assume that everybody else is already on board. That's not really the case, though. Not everyone understands it. And not everyone who does understand the science understands making the effort to get outside and move their bodies. And right now, I can't blame anyone who's struggling to get outside and find the motivation to stay exercising. When I'm struggling to go on a trail run, I know it's definitely not just me. Reasons keep keep piling up to stay inside. Working from home is intense. Homeschooling is difficult. Keeping the house clean is literally impossible. And with kids at home, who has time to exercise? But we still need to make time and find time to get outside whenever and however possible, if not for yourself, as an example for the younger people in your life, also known as your kids in most cases. We can't be what we can't see. And for kids, this is so important. I didn't know that riding bikes or running on trails could be fun when I was little because no one showed me that. I thought the only way to be athletic was to participate in organized sports, team sports, and I hated that idea, which leads me to one of my favorite topics and the one that I'm thinking about a ton right now. How can we get more people, especially kids, outside, and not just the sporty ones who already want to do that? Statistics have shown that less than half of North Americans report spending any recreational time outside, which is bonkers. And that starts when we're kids. For girls, the numbers are even worse. By puberty, almost 80% of girls drop out of sport. And that means both school and the riding bikes around the neighborhood, playing with friends kind of stuff. This stuff is going to be so much more important in the next few months because researchers are actually saying that childhood obesity is going to be on the rise as a result of this lockdown. Kids are out of organized sport. They're not outside playing with their friends. They're not able to continue with regular routines. They're, at serious risk of having really high levels of inactivity. And for parents, you have a huge challenge now. You're homeschooling, you're trying to make sure kids are eating well, maybe avoiding some of the ultra processed comfort foods mostly, and still getting in a ton of activity. And you're also working and working out for yourself. This is an impossible ask for you, but then again, parents are often tasked with the impossible, it seems like. So how are we going to get kids moving and excited about being active when friends are out of the picture right now? We can't do this stuff, right? We can't go to the bike park with our friends. We can't go on bike rides with our crew. As a non-outdoorsy kid and a huge bookworm, I loved the Babysitter's Club books. This seems like a weird segue, but bear with me. Babysitting, inherently super boring, right? No one wants to babysit if you actually think about what it is that you're doing when you babysit. But I read the Babysitter's Club books obsessively, and I started a Babysitter's Club. So, as an adult, I came to sport. I was super annoyed at my parents for not getting me involved in sport much earlier. How could they have not let me try cycling or running or any of that stuff? Why didn't my mom leave me at T-ball? I confronted them on this. They laughed at me. I was very stubborn, apparently. And if I didn't want to do something, I was not going to do it. But still, there had to be a way to get me involved in sport. So then I remembered my love of the Babysitter's Club and my obsession with reading it and subsequently babysitting. And I realized if I could write books that would convince girls to go outside and play on their bikes, would that have convinced me to go outside and play on my bike? Yeah, it probably would have. I mean, if I could babysit, I could definitely go out and ride a bike. So I started the Shred Girl series. Because there are a ton of girls out there who don't see themselves in sports. That was not just me. They weren't going to get on I wasn't getting on a bike just because my dad brought one home. They need to see themselves cycling. They need to see their friends. They need to see other girls that are out there on bikes, who are out there climbing mountains, who are out there surfing, who are out there doing all these cool activities. But most of them are really stubborn, and telling them just to go outside and ride isn't going to work. So that's why I started the Shred Girl series, which follows a fictional group of young girls who do, get outside and start a bike club together. Clubs and groups where girls can go once they take that step and get outside are going to be really important. And they're super critical to getting girls on bikes and getting girls stoked on bikes and keeping them on bikes. However, right now, we can't get outside in groups and clubs. So we need to think about how we can reach kids where they are right now. They're inside playing video games. Okay, can we get them playing Tony Hawk? Can we leave a skateboard in the basement or on the back porch? And I'm not the only late in life athlete that you know. So in addition to getting kids inspired to getting outside as much as possible, I want to urge you to invite other adults to get outside as well. There are still a whole lot of people like the younger version of me and there's those who understand that they need to move their bodies for health reasons, but they don't understand that it can be fun. because they're the ones that force themselves to go to the gym for 30 minutes 3 times a week and haven't really figured out what exercising and enjoying exercising really means, because no one has taken them and shown them that it can be awesome. Um, and right now it's more critical than ever that we get moving. Everyone here knows someone who is exactly like I was. She's your sister, he's your neighbor, they're your family friends. Even if we can't get outside and go for a ride with our friends, with our buddies, we can still encourage others to be moving more. That might mean sharing favorite workout videos, giving away that old bike that doesn't fit your 7-year-old but could fit your neighbor's, setting up a FaceTime group dance class for your kids or for your book club. Whatever's going to get people moving and excited. So this is your challenge. I want us to make sure that we're thinking about ways to ensure that our generation and younger generations have opportunities for outdoor adventure for years to come, that everyone can see themselves playing outside, that we have these open spaces where we can be outside, that people, and especially kids, have fun outside and never forget the simple pleasure of just feeling their feet in the grass, or the thrill of diving into our bay here in Collingwood, or the amazement of summiting a mountain for the first time. As we talked through our topics for this evening, our next speaker, Justin Jones, made a great point. We have a chance, and hopefully this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance, to decide who we want to be when this is over. Do we want to be Costco shoppers who are hoarding toilet paper, or people who support local farms and eat healthy whole foods that are grown here? Do we want to ride our bikes to school and work, or do we want to start driving everywhere again? Do we want to settle into a state of inactivity, or do we want to summit those mountains? And do we want to bring our friends and neighbors along for the ride, or are we going to regress to a state of fear and suspicion? So with that in mind, I want to introduce Justin, aka Mr. Bikes a Lot, who's going to be speaking about ways we can change the way that we look at bikes and alternative modes of transportation here in town. This moment may seem really hectic, and like this moment in time is just never going to end, but really this is an opportunity for us to rethink a lot of previously permanent structures and habits as we do hopefully slowly return to normal life. So I'm going to exit my screen share here, and I'm going to turn it over to Justin Jones.
Right.
All right, Justin, you are up.
Good, we're live?
We're live.
Okay, good. Thank you so much, Tara, and thank you to everyone who's making the time today and is attending. It's really nice to know that we, even though we weren't able to do this the way that we wanted to, we're still making it work, right? And so I do think that we can get these opportunities to get together, even if digitally, and chat about what kind of future we want to see. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a presentation on. Hopefully this works. Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Okay. Yep, you're good.
Okay, so what I want to talk to you guys about today is just building on an idea that has kind of been percolating a little bit in the back of my mind and in the minds of some of the folks that I work with, about how Collingwood could become Biketown, Ontario, and what that could mean for our community. And when I say become Biketown, Ontario, what I mean is that I think that Collingwood has an opportunity to become the best place in Ontario, if not the best place in Canada, to ride a bike. And I do think that we have that opportunity if we're willing to reach up and seize it. And so I want to talk a little bit about what that would mean for our community and how we can get there. So before I get started with that, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. And there's a reason behind this. It's not just because I'm a raging narcissist. There is a moral to this story, I promise. So my story doesn't really start in a place that you would expect someone who loves bikes to start. My story starts in Carstairs, Alberta. So this is a small town about 40 minutes north of Calgary. And, you know, if you're trying to think of a place that's further away from the great cycling cultures of the world, it would be pretty hard to find somewhere less bike friendly than Carstairs. I mean, the word car is right there in the name. It really is primary in the name of the town and also in the attitude of the community. I distinctly remember when I turned 16, I did the same thing that everyone in my class did at age 16, which was went out, did your driver's test, got your driver's license, and then went out and bought the most expensive car you could afford. So for me, that was a basic, and everything. We took that car absolutely everywhere. We used it for every single trip that we made, whether it was to the, whether it was from getting to school or going to the grocery store, or every day at lunch, me and four of my friends would pile in the Fifth Ave and we would drive down to the local convenience store. So this is the Max in Carstairs. And if you look off in the distance, that's actually my school. I don't know if you can see my pointer, but the building just at the back there, that's the school. And that is a grand total distance of 306 meters. Thank you, Google Maps, for telling me just how lazy I was in my high school days. And that really does kind of give you an idea of how I grew up. And so it wasn't until I ended up moving to Ontario that I really discovered my love of cycling. And so I was living in downtown Toronto, and I saw a lot of people riding around on bikes. And so I decided at age 23, having not been on a bike since I was in grade school, to give cycling a try again. And so I went out and I bought myself another vehicle that was older than I am. This is my second bike now. This is my current ride. But my old bike was a 1982 Peugeot. So I guess I just like buying vehicles that are as older than I am. But that really became the keys to the city for me. It really opened up different neighborhoods and different areas of Toronto that were outside of that kind of walk bubble, but that were still a quick and easy bike ride available. And the thing that I found is that it was far and away the fastest way to move through a congested city. It didn't matter if my friends were taking transit, if they were taking a cab, if they were on foot. Me on my bike meant that I was getting there before they did. So I really developed this deep love of my bike, but it was really a monogamous relationship. It was just me and my bike kind of moving through the city. And it wasn't until I ended up moving to Hamilton that I really discovered the value of how bikes can build community. So when I moved to Hamilton, I got involved in a project called Yes We Canon. And Yes We Canon was an advocacy campaign designed to encourage the city to two-way on a big one-way street in Hamilton. So Cannon Street's 4 lanes wide, a one-way street that doesn't carry a whole lot of traffic, but the traffic it carries moves very fast. And so it was almost like a moat in the community. It was really driving the community apart and provided a lot of separation. And we looked at a vision for that street that would bring people together. And so we started talking to people about it, and the response was just overwhelming. Everywhere we went, we had people wanting to sign the petition. We ended up gathering over 3,000 signatures. We sent over 500 individual letters to council, people telling councilors that they wanted to see this project move ahead. And we launched this project in 2013 with the goal of having it on the ground by 2015. And I'm really pleased to say that by September of 2014, those bike lanes were a reality, and they've just been made a permanent piece of infrastructure in Hamilton. So it was really instructive to me to show the value of community that gathers around active transportation and around cycling. And it showed me the value of our streets and the public spaces that those are, and how important it is. And now, I've kind of come full circle. I've kind of moved back to a little bit more of a individual approach, where the most important thing to me now is getting my kiddos around safely. And if you live in Collingwood, you've probably seen me riding around. I like to say that I've probably got one of the most recognizable vehicles in town. This is how I choose to get around most days. So the reason I tell my story is because I just think that it's illustrative of the fact that a lot of different types of people can come to active transportation for a lot of different reasons. I think if you would have told 18-year-old Justin Jones living in Carstairs, Alberta, driving his 1984 Chrysler Fifth Avenue, that he was going to be living in Collingwood, riding around in a Dutch cargo bike with his two kids, he probably would have looked at you like you grew a second head. But that's the reality I find myself in. And the reason that I've come to this is just I see the think about how I'm working out on my bike and when I'm in. So when I talk about all of this stuff, I want to just take a second and just kind of highlight the fact that I am really, really fortunate to be able to make my passion my profession. I've been fortunate enough to work for the Share the Road Cycling Coalition for 7 years here in Ontario. We're a nonprofit that's based right here in Ontario, and our goal is to build an Ontario that is the most bike-friendly jurisdiction in North America. And so as a result, I have been able to ride my bike in a lot of different municipalities. I've ridden my bike in almost 100 of the 444 municipalities in Ontario. So I have really been all over the place, everywhere from Temiskaming Shores, Manitoulin Island, Espanola, Thunder Bay, to Windsor, Essex, Amherstburg, and then all the way out to Cornwall and into Renfrew and Ottawa. So I've ridden a lot of different places. And when I rode my bike for the first time in Collingwood, I really knew that I had found my home. Collingwood felt like home to me because I haven't found another community that I feel like riding your bike in is as easy, as comfortable, as convenient as it is in Collingwood. We are incredibly fortunate to have a network of trails that is second to none in the province. In terms of our kilometers of trails to our kilometers of roads, we are number one in the province. We have more trails per square kilometer than any other community in Ontario. And I think that it's just one of the gems of our town. It's one of the things that we can be most proud of. You can get basically from anywhere to anywhere in this town on either a nice quiet residential street or a trail. And I think that is just such an asset that we can celebrate. But as fantastic as it is, it can always be better. And so I wanted to just kind of talk a little bit about where we can potentially go here in Collingwood. The great thing about Collingwood is it doesn't matter if you are coming for road biking, for mountain biking, for single track, we've got the BMX park, or if you're going out like I am with my kids and looking for nice, calm, quiet trails and experiences that take us away from roads and cars. We've really got it all here in Collingwood. The access is absolutely incredible. So when I say that we can be Biketown, Ontario, and we can be the best place in Ontario to ride a bike, I mean we can be the best place in Ontario to ride any kind of bike for any reason. And I think that that's a real distinction and a real feather in our cap that we can lay claim to here in Collingwood. One of the things about the town of Collingwood is absolutely incredible is how compact it is. Our urban form is really an asset to our community. This shows what the town of Collingwood looks like with a 3-kilometer radius. So that's about the amount of distance that I would cover on my cargo bike with my 2 kids in the front in about 12 minutes. So it's pretty hard to find a trip in Collingwood that you can't make on your bike in 20 minutes or less. It is a really compact and easy to get around town. And it's just one of those things where I think that when it's that easy and that accessible, and we all saw what the difference in our mood was versus right now to the times when we're outside moving around, I just think that it's so important for people to use transportation and getting around the community as an opportunity to improve their mental health as well. So when we survey Ontarians, we find that 32% of Ontarians would like to cycle to or from work more often. And so that is kind of the potential for a lot of our communities, seeing about 30% of people who would like to ride their bike to and from work. But when we talk about, our cycling trips, our trip to work is really only one of about every 5 trips that we make. So the opportunities to change how we move around in terms of everyday trips to the grocery store, to our friend's house, to the cafes, to the restaurants, to the churches, to all the places that we're going to want to go when this is all over. Those are really the opportunities to create a stronger culture of cycling in town. I always say that Monday morning cycling will do more for your community than Sunday morning cycling ever could, especially in terms of lifelong physical activity. Because the people that are out there on their bikes on Monday morning, taking their kids to school or riding to work or going to the grocery store, those are the folks that are setting a positive example in terms of lifelong physical activity for their kids. Because when we talk about improving access to physical activity, getting involved in organized sports is obviously something that we want to encourage and we want to do. But the best thing that we can do for people's overall health is improve their access to routine, everyday physical activity. That means walking, biking, wheeling, using skateboards, rollerblades, whatever it is that you need to do to move around, but do it actively. Work those active routines into the everyday things that you're doing, and that's when you start to realize the significant community benefits that active transportation and cycling can bring. So let's learn from some of our peers, like Boulder, Colorado, one of the most bike-friendly communities in the United States. And they have some really incredible programs that run in Boulder, like their Rat Rides, which is it stands for Ride Around Town. So it's a short kind of 3 to 5 mile route that essentially loops through the community and then ends up at a local destination. So whether it's a brewery or a restaurant or a park where there's an ice cream truck, it gives people that opportunity to come out and be social with their neighbors and go for that ride. They also have a really great program that encourages kids to ride and provides bikes to low-income kids. So if a kid can't afford a bike in Boulder, there's always an opportunity for them to get access to a high-quality, well-maintained bike that they're going to be able to use to go out and ride with their friends and ride with the other people around them. They have a small bike share system, which is essentially just kind of a little bike that you credit card, or if you're a member with your ID card, and those are really great ways to expand access to cycling for people who aren't sure if they're ready to commit to buying their own bike and starting to ride around. And then they have this fantastic program called Upshift, and it's a mobile bike repair clinic that goes around to different farmers markets and events, particularly in some of the lower income neighborhoods within Boulder. And they do free bike repair, and they also teach people how to do some of the basics of bike repair. So maintaining your bike a little bit, fixing a flat, putting the chain back on, making sure that you have your bike adjusted properly, all those little things that can make the difference between a bike sitting in the back of a garage or being out on the road. And then, so I want to talk about something that I think is a little bit timely and a little bit uh, it's within our realm of possibility here in Collingwood. And it's a movement that's called Slow Streets. And maybe you've heard of it. It's been kind of going around in a lot of places in the United States and increasingly here in Ontario as well. Brampton, Mississauga, Ottawa has instituted some of it because we're seeing such diminished traffic volumes on our streets because so few cars are not traveling. A lot of the cars that are traveling are going very fast. They're looking at those streets as wide open racetracks. And more than that, what you're seeing is people that are having a hard time physical distancing because sidewalks aren't 6 feet wide. Even today, I was out on our trails, and most of our trails are held to a 9-foot standard. Even on our trails today, I found it challenging on my bike to maintain adequate physical distancing in certain spots because they were just starting to get busy. People are meant to go outside. And it doesn't matter if we're in the middle of a pandemic, especially when we're in the middle of a pandemic and we can't go to our parks, we can't go to our playgrounds, we can't socialize with our friends. We need something to do, and that is leading a lot of people to get out and go for a walk or go for a bike ride. And so if we don't have the space to do that safely, we're going to find ourselves in a situation where you know, we're going to be left with a choice between not going out or, you know, potentially having to close off some of those fantastic assets. And that's something I would hate to see. So what we've seen in a lot of different communities is they're closing off streets to through traffic. So they're still maintaining access for emergency vehicles and for the people who live there. But they're saying this is a street that's now designated for people to walk and bike. So this is a picture from Oakland, California, where they've done it really simply, just, you know, a pylon and a road sign, and that's all you need to provide that space for people to walk and bike safely during these tricky times. But it's not just for pandemics. This kind of infrastructure change of reclaiming some of this valuable public space is really starting to move all across North America in a permanent way, and those programs are called neighborhood greenways. And this is actually built into the cycling plan here in Collingwood for streets like Maple and like Collins, where we'd be looking at something called a bicycle priority street that would provide through traffic for people walking and cycling. But for people who are driving, those streets are not anymore accessible as a through street. So every time you get to an intersection, you're forced to turn to go over to, say, here, Ontario, so that you can use that street to head straight north-south through town. But a street like Maple Street would no longer be a shortcut, you know, for people to use to cut through town. It would be a place where kids could, you know, learn to ride their bikes in the street, where street hockey would be easy to play because you wouldn't be stopping for a car every 2 minutes. A place where neighbors would feel comfortable letting their kids play in their front yard, not just in their back. And so those are the kinds of things that I think we should be thinking about as we move through this pandemic and into the time afterward, where we need to be considering how our public space is being utilized. And that, I think, is the thing that if we could take anything away from this, it's the realization that the largest public asset that any community has is our streets. That's the largest single outlay of public space. And when we dedicate them only to one use, I think we rob people of the opportunity to use those streets as you know, an extension of the front yard, a place that can connect people, not, rather than drive them apart. When we're talking about creating a great bike-friendly city, we need to make sure that we're thinking for all seasons. And especially here in Collingwood, we know that we have kind of, you know, challenging winters. You know, we get lots of snow, we get thaws, we get ice. But there are cities around the world that have similar or worse winters than we do, and they manage to hang on to a lot of people cycling every single year because they maintain a lot of their pathways and their network to a standard that people can ride all year round. You know, I always tell people no one would buy a Toyota Corolla if we didn't plow our roads for the winter, right? It'd be kind of like, oh, snow's flying, put the Corolla away, get the Hummer out. You know, if you aren't maintaining the infrastructure for the types of vehicles that you want to see, don't be surprised when those vehicles aren't usable. So we need to think about how we can make our winter network not quite as robust as our summer network. We don't need to have every single trail and every single road maintained, but we need some priority corridors that can be connected and designated as winter routes. The number one thing that we need, though, here in Collingwood is not a bunch of new infrastructure. It's not new trails. It's not new bike lanes. It's none of that. The number one thing that we need is human resources. We need people that are going to be willing to bring all of the fantastic groups that are working on active transportation in Collingwood together. You know, we've got groups like the Collingwood Cycling Club, like Cork, like the Trails Committee, like our service clubs, like our active and safe routes to school groups. And there's all these amazing people doing all this amazing work, but too often they're not communicating with one another. They're not talking, they're not identifying common goals and identifying places where they can be sharing resources and building a stronger culture of cycling here in Collingwood. And so we were going to launch a bike mayor program at the Outdoor Edit Speaker Series, where we're going to look at nominations and getting someone who can, on a volunteer level, serve as the ambassador for cycling in Collingwood, someone who can bring all those different communities together. And so we are still going to try and do this. It's not something that we're going to shelve, but I just encourage you to think about someone in your life who is incredibly passionate about riding a bike in Collingwood, and who would be a great nominee for bike mayor, because we would love to see one come forward. And I'm going to close with this, just that people are creatures of habit. We need to give people the opportunity to create new habits. And we're all going through a bit of an adjustment period right now. You know, a lot of the old habits and ideas that we had are obviously being thrown for a bit of a loop. And so we have a unique opportunity to take a minute and consider what is really working in our lives, what's providing us happiness, what's providing us joy, and how can we craft a life coming out of this, and a community coming out of this that fits how we want it to look rather than how it has looked. I think that that's a really tremendous opportunity, and I think it would be a shame if we didn't follow it. I always close my presentation about Collingwood with this picture. This is my friends Adam and Laura, who came up to visit from Belleville, and we basically spent all day riding bikes and drinking beer. It was fantastic. Back in the before days when you could do that. But these are two friends that I made literally from the saddle of a bike, and I can count the number of friends that I've made from behind a windshield on 0 hands. I don't have a single friend that I've ever made from behind the windshield of a car, but some of the most consequential friendships that I've ever made came about because of bikes. And so I think that, when we're trying to build a more connected, more compassionate community, getting out and being physically present in that community, whether we're on our bike, whether we're walking, whether we're wheeling, just as long as we're there, we're physical, we're present, and we're presenting our true face to the world. I think that that is really the way forward to build out of this. Thank you so much, and I'm really excited to hang out and listen to Tara and Peter.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Justin. All right, so next up we have Tara Blaine Hunt, former crashed ice competitor, owner of Anytime Fitness here in Collingwood, entrepreneur, angel investor, kind of one of the coolest women that I've had the privilege of meeting in the past few years. She's amazing. She's going to be speaking about her journey with nutrition, how we have an amazing opportunity to focus on local producers right now, and why that matters for our local economy as well as for our health. So Tara, I am going to turn it over to you here. All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Molly, for that warm introduction. I'm just going to share my screen with you all. Ta-da! Okay, awesome. So it is such a pleasure to be a part of the virtual summit series and to be here with you all tonight. I'm going to be talking about a 4-letter F word that we all know, love, but sometimes dislike. Now, some of you might be thinking, is she really going to swear during her talk tonight? Funk no. The 4-letter word I'm going to be talking to you about tonight is one that without, there would be no life. And with no life, there would be no love. A 4-letter word that you and I have had the pleasure to touch, see, hear, smell, and taste. Can anyone guess what that 4-letter F word is that I'm talking about? Drum roll, please. Food. According to Hippocrates, the father of medicine, food is our medicine. And tonight we are going to explore what this means and why it is important to get back to basics when it comes to our healthy food and the opportunity that we have to come together as a community stronger than ever. Now, this talk has the potential to be beneficial to everyone on the call tonight, especially those of you who struggle or who have struggled with sports performance due to improper nutrition, energy and or weight management, you know, that feeling of needing caffeine, chocolate, or other sugary pick-me-up, potential sacrifice mental performance and irritated behavior, as well as connection with oneself, others, and or nature. So here's a little bit more about me. My husband, Ed, and I are partners in Anytime Fitness, and we met actually back in 2003 while working as recreation therapists at Waypoint Center for Mental Health. It was actually during the SARS outbreak. Yes, I am an angel investor with humble beginnings. I actually lived in my car while supporting myself from the age of 16. Consequently, I am a half credit shy of receiving my high school diploma, but that's a discussion for another day. I believe it's important that you know that I have things that I'm terrible at, like golf, as well as the fear of public speaking. And so if you don't mind, I'm going to take a moment and put on my armor. This is a plaque from the Collingwood Library, a place I've spent a lot of time. I love Dr. Seuss, and I love this quote. Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. Please note that you are all muted, so even if you are booing me right now, I can't hear you. So tonight I'm going to be sharing a secret that I've been holding on to for more than 40 years. Why would you do that, you might be asking? Well, I'm tired of lugging this secret around. And more importantly, there's healing to be had by acknowledging the things we want to change. Dr. Phil says you can't change what you don't acknowledge. You've taken the time to connect with me tonight, and I want to honor you and your health. Being the oldest female to qualify and compete in Red Bull Crashed Ice, I got to experience what it feels like to fly. I will never forget skating to the starting gates of my first Red Bull race, looking out over St. Paul, Minnesota, where Anytime Fitness's head office location is held. There were over 100,000 people in the crowd, with the cathedral as our backdrop. I knew if I could land this 20-foot drop, I could do anything, including sharing my struggle with a Zoom room full of friends and friends of friends. I know that we are all connected. So like a caterpillar morphs into a butterfly, my intention, in fact, my life's purpose is to help others, maybe even you, learn to fly, but without the 20-foot drop. So if we're gonna fly together, we had better warm up first. So I'm gonna get to you guys too, and I can't see your video, but I'm gonna trust that you're standing up with me right now, and we're gonna squat down like we're sitting in a chair, and then reach up to the ceiling, and then do it again. Squat down, and then reach, and then last time, 3 times a charm, and reach. Thankfully, your videos aren't on, so I can't see your pajamas. Okay, so if healthy food is our medicine, then the opposite must be true. And for me, this is less of a question, and it's more of my life story. Here's my secret. To this day, I struggle with all of these things. Growing up, I was exposed to a lot of very unhealthy eating habits from my parents, my extended family, the media, television, and magazines, and the quote-unquote nutrition experts. I didn't know how, what, why, or when to eat. And so some days I did eat, and some days I didn't. You would never know by looking at this photo from 1995 that the year prior, I was awarded Athlete of the Year thanks to a total of 7 Georgia Bay Championships titles. Sports were my outlet to my internal struggle with food. And so in 2000, I set out to make peace with my unhealthy eating habits and get to the core of what it meant to fuel the body, the mind, and the spirit. While working nights at a local factory, I came across a new version to the sport of triathlon, the Xterra Off-Road Adventure Triathlons. There were 2 races back-to-back within 900 kilometers of each other, one in Whistler and one in Hood River. I rationalized that I could fly into Vancouver, ride my bike to Oregon, and catch a return flight out of Portland. No more fake it till you make it, I thought. The moment of truth was about to unfold, and unfold it did. Despite all of my preparation, improvements to nutrition, training, and coaching, by the time I made it to the run of the Whistler course, I bombed. Completely and utterly ran out of gas. I had to walk the entire 10K trail run. With no one to blame but myself, the negative self-talk crept in. What was I thinking? A rebellious kid from Ontario trying to compete in the big leagues of professional endurance sport. Give up on your dream of being a greater, better version of yourself, Tara. Go back to normal. The only problem was, I didn't even know what normal was. And then this happened. At the almost halfway mark between my ride from BC to Oregon, I got 2 flat tires and had to take shelter for the night under a picnic table, just outside of Olympia, Washington. Early the next morning, I awoke to the loud sounds of a mountain lion warning its prey, me, stay back or I'll attack. Please let me live, lion, I remember saying, although quiet enough as to not to provoke the hungry cat. My life has meaning, and although I don't know what the meaning of my life is, I promise I will figure it out. Let me live, little kitty. Please don't eat me. No sooner after the commitment to myself and the fat cat was made, the lion went away, and I was left to continue on my journey. When I got into town that morning, I was greeted by a utopian-like community of fellow cyclists, community gardens, art, culture, local currency, and a feeling of community connected with nature. This was the fuel that I needed to finding my life's purpose. That weekend in Hood River, I had the best triathlon race experience of my life. I can still remember the smell of the air, the feeling of rolling through the single track mountain bike course, and the pure appreciation of my body connecting to the earth with each stride along the run. When I crossed the finish line, to my surprise, I heard my name announced over the loudspeaker. And in 3rd place, all the way from Ontario, Canada, Tara Blaine. Despite my complete and utterly disappointing finish at last weekend's race in Whistler, I persevered and made podium. This was no longer about a triathlon course. No, this was way bigger than that. This was about my life's course. The matter of life's meaning and life's meaning to matter. And so, for 20 years, I've been researching and experimenting with food as my medicine. And to spare you all the head and heartache, sleepless nights, and worrisome days I've compiled a very keep it simple list of ways that you too can benefit from food. First things first, rise and shine with lemon water. It's like shower on the inside. Number 2 is to practice an attitude of gratitude. Hold hands, say grace, be thankful for each day. Number 3 is to put your body into a state of rest and digest the parasympathetic nervous system, not fight or flight, by eating within 60 minutes of waking. Slow down to speed up metabolism. Give leptin, our satiety hormone, the time that it needs to release and signal to your body that you're full. You know, fat got a bad rap, and it's actually like the internet or the Wi-Fi for our body, so it can send signals to and from one area to the other. Number 6, and this is one that I really struggled with, and that is to eat colorful fruits and vegetables, and to consider fruit as nature's candy. The more color, the more likely you're getting a balance of nutrients and vitamins. For number 7, For me, as an A blood type, I eat mostly vegetarian. However, if you're an O, according to the science, your protein is better sourced from meat, which leads me into number 8. By sourcing locally grown and raised food, not only are you supporting our local economy, you're also supporting your local ecosystem, your immune system. Together, we can make healthy happen. Together, we can create our own utopia. Imagine a town where everyone bikes to the local farmer's market, a place where people come together to share, to grow, to learn, to enjoy local food, music, art, ideas, a place where we can stay, play, create, and care about one another. All for one and one for all. We are stronger together. And although we don't know how long we have to practice social distancing, we the people have the ability to come together and support each other through our local food chain. So here's a list of local healthy food providers. And we will be sharing this list with you, and ask if you know of others, please share as well. By supporting our local ecosystem, as mentioned, you're supporting your immune system. Right now and always, healthy food is our best offense to defend disease. We can do this. As unhealthy habits unfold, it's easy to get confused, it's easy to get discouraged, and it's easy to feel alone. Remember me and the mountain lion? Follow Anytime Fitness on social media and join a community of like-minded individuals who are facing the challenge just like you and I. Together, we can make healthy happen. I want to thank you all tonight. Namaste.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tara. That was fantastic. Just if you can stop sharing your screen or end your screen share. Almost there. While she's figuring that out, for our last speaker tonight, I wanted to introduce my husband, Peter Glassford. He is a registered kinesiologist. He's an endurance coach who works predominantly with busy masters athletes and focuses on bike skills, movement, and training load and does rides for groups and clubs all over the world. So, Peter, I am going to hand it over to you.
Awesome. Well, excited to sort of close the show out tonight. Hopefully I won't be too long here. I know everyone's wants to get going and stuff. But thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for listening to all of us. What I wanted to talk about was indeed sort of about movement. You know, that we've been touching on this in different ways tonight. But I thought, from a kinesiologist standpoint, from my work in endurance coaching with adults, I wanted to talk a bit about movement tonight and sort of what that means, even beyond sort of working out and training. Can you get slideshow going? Are we going with that?
I can,
Sorry.
yes. Tech wizard here.
So I thought the best way to talk about, it seems Molly was shorter than I am. The best way to talk about what I do is to sort of through the people and some of the images, right? So I think that's where the impressive stuff is, and where people get out and really shine and go on adventures. And so I have clients like this who are, busy people, maybe working in healthcare, have families, have the normal sort of responsibilities of life, but are able to put in time, over a consistent amount of months and years, so that they can build up and do things like this is a 100-mile gravel race. And this just makes me smile watching, this client just distancing herself from all these men. Is just really cool, and just like all these training and all the stories behind that are really cool. This picture is not coming in quite as well, but it's another client who's going to university, really busy, riding technical trails, believe it or not. This is another female client who's learning how to jump, and as an adult woman, conquering fears and really getting it through that. And so it's this really cool stuff that again, building over time, nothing huge, but it's these small wins and confidence building sort of experiences, right, that we're getting through sport. There's another group, a local club, not unlike our local club here in Collingwood, Cork, you know, and they're learning about mountain bike skills, and they're just trying to get out there and figure out mountain biking and riding better so that they can get out and ride with their friends, you know, enjoy the forest, be safe as adults, and as kids, right? This one actually has younger clients as well, which is great. And this is another client who's a teacher, but he's actually one of the best masters mountain bike racers in the country, if not the world. We just had world championships in this past year. And so he's been training probably over 20 years at least now, and is really inspiring, and has 2 young boys, and is sort of incorporating movement and stuff into their lifestyle as well. And I thought that part of the reason that this was good to sort of highlight these people doing really amazing, like high level things, was that, you know, everything was going really good. The winter was really, really good. I was getting pretty excited that everyone, you know, most people were rolling along pretty well here. And then, you know, obviously, you probably felt a bit of this as well. It felt like the treadmill just abruptly stopped and we were all sort of slammed into the ground, you know, whatever our goals were, whatever we were hoping to do this spring. And so I thought, you know, Justin alluded to this, Molly's alluded to this opportunity we have, that we've all sort of just been slammed into the ground, and sort of the treadmill of life, if you will, has sort of come to a pause in a lot of ways, for better or worse. And there's obviously a lot of really troubling and a lot of really hard things right now. But we also have this pause where we have to revisit. I'm sure in your day-to-day life, there's been changes where you're maybe at home more, you know, you maybe have more time to get out and walk, or maybe not. You maybe had a great training routine and maybe that's been disrupted and you've seen that change. You're maybe cooking at home more. I imagine you're not, you know, as easily going out and getting fast food, right? So there's a lot of positives, negatives, possibilities for changes that we're looking at as far as health and nutrition and lifestyle. And it could go either way. It could be improving things in some ways. It could be not improving things in some ways. But I think this has been a great leveling where, regardless of the client I'm working with or the person I'm working with, there's this opportunity for change, this impetus that we're all sort of thrown into the ground, and we're sort of trying to rebuild and build these habits now. And so whether you're like one of my clients, you know, whether you're trying to get ready for the group ride, you're trying to get really set up to go for big rides on the weekends, or you are aspiring to something, you know, big races in the future, I think it's worth thinking about this as an opportunity. Again, acknowledging the tough times that are ahead and that we are in, but looking at this time. And for the athletes that I do work with, we've been sort of coming back to this idea of, you are an athlete, and there is an opportunity here for us to have some control. You know, I have this diagram here. It's actually from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But there's this idea of, there's things we can control and there's things we can't control. There's a lot right now we can't control. That's the big outer circle. But inside, there's some elements of your day that you can control. Some of us don't have a lot. Some of us, it might be, you know, just small motions. It might be our attitude that we're bringing to things. For some of us, there might be a lot of the day free that we do control. And if we think about ourselves as an athlete, then there's things like goals as far as, you know, what we're doing every day. We're planning our workouts. We're maybe planning when we're going to go for a walk. You know, our nutrition is something we have more control probably than we've had in the past, and less distractions than we've had in the past for a lot of us. So I want you to think about some of that opportunity as things that you can control, and some of that stuff that we're concerned about, but is, you know, a little bit beyond our control largely, right? And trying to think of your exercise, your movement, as a way to feel like you're making progress in some things, to feel like you're, you know, able to control something in life. And I think for a lot of us, that's an empowering message, right? So I thought here, so we have sort of the basics of exercise. I thought I'd share to start. The idea with exercise is that, you know, people will say you got to get started. You got to get started. And that's easy if you're into exercise, I think, to get out the door. Often, you know, you can figure that out. But I think the message that movement versus even exercise is our goal, whether we're a hard charging athlete trying to do 100-mile gravel races, or we're someone who's just trying to take those first literal steps to exercise. doing something is worthwhile, right? That's the messaging we're seeing, that like whether it's mental health, whether it's blood sugar control, weight management, bone health, our sleep at night. If we can get out and walking, if we can use the stairs, if we can do a workout, great. If we can join into a Zoom meeting and do a workout or something, that's all amazing stuff. But the key is that we start, and we start slow. There's no need for it to be a huge, massive workout. You don't have to be super sore the next day. And in fact, it's better if you're, oh, I felt better, just like Justin said. If we all are feeling better when we're moving in some ways, it doesn't have to be something official like a workout. It can definitely be movement through the house, around the house, out playing games. And we'll touch a bit more on some ideas here in a couple slides. The idea of no pain, no gain is something that, especially as we're getting started with exercise, a new exercise, or just started with exercise and movement, there's this sort of mindset, we've seen on TV, The Biggest Loser or something like that, where, it seems like everyone's just like really breathing hard all the time, and, lifting for hours and exercising for hours and running marathons. And that's great if that's what you're into and you enjoy that. And you might get there, like Molly alluded to in her talk, over many years, over many months, we might get to a point where we love going for trail runs, and that's something we need every day. But for those of us that are starting, and even those of us that are trying to deal with this more inside, more sedentary living, right? We're not able to walk around the city. We're not able to maybe even commute to work anymore. Trying to build in some of these little movements into our day, into our house are important. I put the turtle there. This is from the Labyrinth here in Collingwood. I challenge you to go for a walk and find it if you haven't found it. It's in Harborview Park. The turtle's there, and I always, I wouldn't say I meditate, but when I ride by it, or I run by it, or we walk by it, it does remind me of this idea of consistency over time, rather than no pain, no gain. So as you're pursuing movement, I want you to remember that turtle. These couple images here, so we're talking about moving at home and these small motions, right? On the one side here, we have a lady, that's actually Katie Bowman, who has a couple great books around sort of this idea of mini movements and movements built into our day that aren't necessarily exercise, but movements that are built into things that we do. We're very good at outsourcing. We have cars to drive us places. We have people that deliver our food to us. We have blenders to blend our food. Everything is getting easier. And she's been very good at, I think, showing how, we can make life a little harder, a little more challenging, and build some of these movements into our day. She's essentially on a Zoom meeting like you are right now, but you can see she's in a kneeling posture. That's probably going to get uncomfortable in a couple minutes, and she's going to have to move side to side into maybe a side sit or a little squat or a lunge. She's obviously stretching. But some of these things are not even extra energy once you're down in them. So if you're someone who's working from home right now, can you do a couple hours where maybe you're seated or standing, or, mix that up? So that's the one image. And then we have the other one of stairs, right? A lot of us have stairs, and those are a great thing that, we can go up and down the stairs between meetings. We can incorporate that into a workout with something like Tara did squats today. So now you've got squats. We've already started. We got our workout done for today. Tomorrow, maybe some stairs plus the squats that Tara had you do would be a first step into, gradually progressing workouts. A couple more ideas here. We have sort of a more formal family workout. A lot of my clients, some of the ones that are even pictured, are having to come to terms with the kids are home. And so what we used to do, 1 hour on our indoor trainer or treadmill or our home gym, or, going to the gym, now you have to deal with the, little kids, the dogs, the spouse is around, and we're all sort of just like in this captive environment, right? And the clients that are doing the best with this are maybe still doing some, formal exercise training. They're getting their workout in, but they're also including their kids in a portion of it, or the kids are also like doing a little bit with it. And I think the ones that are doing the best is they're actually started letting the kids participate and even plan some of it. The kids are really good at planning at obstacle courses and games of tag and football and baseball and, any of the things you have in your house. I'm sure you have things like swing sets, or you have, different toys, scooters, skateboards, little bikes, some sort of weight equipment. And you can make games out of it. It doesn't have to be a formal workout like the one at the top. It can definitely be something that's more of a game, or, something the kids will fill in the blanks for you. But thinking about things that you have in your house that you can use for, to augment your motion, to augment your movement. And it doesn't have to be a workout. Again, it could be 2 minutes of doing something, whatever and starting with that, right? And I think, again, that's the message, is that these little motions sprinkled through the day. One of the final ideas here, so we have this walking. Walking is something that I think, when in doubt, just go for a walk. Hopefully we still have that ability, but that could be walking around the house, using the stairs, touring around the basement, going laps around the house. Right now, all the ultra trail runners are doing, big 100-mile runs around their house. So they're doing it in like 100-meter, 200-meter laps. We don't have to be quite that crazy, but you might just do a lap around the house, right? It could be incorporated. I love that the family's tied into this. If you're on meetings or calls, I really don't like being on meetings or calls. So a lot of times I'll go for a walk, and it's pretty good. It's a great way to sort of be attentive and not be distracted, but be moving while you're talking to people. If you can do it in person, great. We're in a time where that's not as easy. So you could definitely be looking at, being on even FaceTime. I've seen people walking around like that, but you could certainly be on a phone call with someone, catch up, and the hour goes by and you've been walking for an hour, right? Versus sitting while you're doing that. And if you can get paid while you're doing that, that's even better, I guess, if it's a work call. On the bottom here, we have gardening, and I want to tie gardening in with cooking. Again, when we're talking about little motions, obviously we have some, stooping down, squatting down, we have some wheelbarrow lifting, that type of stuff. So those are motions that do count. This is light activity that does count towards, like I say, the bone health, feeling it like you're outside and your mood. But when we're even things like chopping food and cooking our food at home should be counted towards our movement of the day, right? This is light activity. This is stuff that we're not just sitting passively. We are sort of standing and having to move and use our body in different ways. And all those little cells, all those little joints in our body need that movement, right? It's moving blood through our body. And it's not just strictly this idea of calories or a workout. It's this idea of movement throughout the day. Making life harder is maybe a way you could describe that. But I think making life more active is a better way, and that we're, again, doing this with people we like, hopefully, talking to them virtually or in person, and gradually building that over time. I wanted to finish with sort of a slide that ties into what Molly was talking about to start off with, where a lot of people aren't exposed to exercise and maybe don't have that exercise bug. I assume that most of the people on the call today do have some sort of tie to exercise, given just the nature of the talk. But during this time, we have a lot of people in our lives that maybe don't have that access and are maybe more restricted and less motivated to get out, right? It's harder for them to get out. They've been told not to go outside. Maybe they don't have access to their usual gym or, again, commute or whatever they're doing. And I think this slide, this is out of Victoria, Australia, really sort of, it's talking about young people, but I think it applies to a lot of people, right? They go for a walk if someone asks them, right? And they enjoy it more if someone asks them and they're out there and they're just talking. Again, the hour goes by quite quickly. You can see the big number there, the bigger number there is the anxiousness, the symptoms of any sort of mental health are improved by getting outside. Especially when we have parks like we do, we're lucky in Canada, we have a lot of green space. So we can augment it with that. And to get out of the house, honestly, right now, as a fidgeter and just someone that needs to move and be outside, it's a great excuse to get outside. So if I could leave you with anything tonight, I think it's this idea of starting slowly with whatever you're doing. Again, that might be walking even if you're a hard charging athlete, and to try and make it more social and more holistic, for lack of a better word, where we're tying that into things that we're doing and doing it with people. To try and build that into the day, right? So not just an isolated hour, but we're thinking about how that whole day can be a little bit more active. All right, so that is sort of the end of my presentation, and hopefully that is of use to you. If you do have any ideas or questions, you can certainly connect with Molly or myself through the consummateathlete.com and then also on social media, and I'll let Molly just finish things up here for you tonight.
All right, as I boot him off stage. Thank you again, everyone, so much for taking the time to hang out with us tonight. Hopefully, once we're all back outside on the playgrounds and in the parks again, you'll say hello if you spot us. And of course, we're hoping to see everybody at the Gaiety Theater on October 9th. And lastly, don't forget to join the mailing list. The link is at the top of the chat. It's bit.ly/howtobeoutside. That is going to have all of tonight's takeaways of the PDF and links to the videos and all of that. So again, thank you so much, and take care of each other and get outside. Have a good night, everybody.